So in this tutorial I'm just going to cover different types of selection, different modes that you can select in, and how to select things in groups, and so a couple of shortcuts. So in an object, an object is made of different things. You have faces, edges, vertices and UVs. And when we're in object mode, we can't access those, so we can't kind of move those around. We can only select the object. And the different modes that we can select in are shown here. So we've got the hierarchy mode, which means we can select groups and groups of objects. That I'm not going to cover in this because I'm really covering stuff that's just concerned with making individual objects, and we're not going to group things for a little while just yet. What I'm concerned with is the object mode, or select by object, and also select by component. So when we select an object, if I create an object here, select by object means I can just select these objects. I can move them around using the move tools, and I can scale them, etc. But I can only do things to the overall object. I can't go inside it and make any changes to it whilst I'm in object mode. So what I can do is either by clicking on the select by object, select by component icon here, or by right clicking and going to one of the components, which can be edge, vertex, face or UV. What I can do is select things depending on their category. So I can select faces here. I can go to edge by right clicking and select edges, and I can also select vertices as well. What it normally does is, if I select a group of vertices by clicking and dragging there, and I go to select face, when I go back to selecting vertices by right clicking, those vertices that I had selected before remain selected. So it's quite handy for things like that. One of the things I have to watch out for when I'm selecting stuff is if I select things to make sure I haven't selected stuff I didn't intend. If I press 4, I can go to wireframe mode, and that's quite handy because it means I can see what I have selected. So if I've selected a couple of faces, it means I can see them because I can see through the entire object. If I press 5, the object becomes solid and I go into shaded mode. And the only way to indicate if I've selected things that I can't see is by this widget not being over the single face. It's exactly in between two faces. So if I think that I've selected one object, let's say I click and drag and press W to move, and I find that the widget is actually not by the face, I'll know that it must be between two individual or a few individual components. So I've got a face there and a couple of faces there. So I just want to tap and click on that face, and I know that I've just got one face selected because that face is shown as being selected and the widget is sat over the top of it. Now there's a couple of things I can do to quickly select things. If I want to select, say, the faces just on the top of the object here, I can go around clicking them individually like that. Or one of the things I can do is I can drag select, and if I hold down Control, you'll see a little minus appear, and Control means to remove from selection. So I can drag and remove those objects or those faces I don't want. If I press plus, then I will add to the selection set. But if I have things that are already selected, then they will be deselected. And if I press Control and Shift, then I will select everything, whether it's selected or unselected. So if I have a face here, for instance, and the difference between these two is if I have this face selected and I press Shift, it'll select everything, but it will deselect that face. If I have that face selected and I press Shift and Control and drag select, it will select everything including that face. So there's a few different ways that we can select things, add to the selection and take away from the selection. Another thing that we can do is we can double click on things, and they will, if I double click on a face, it will select all the faces. If I double click on an edge, it will select an edge loop. And you can see it sees the general flow of the edge, and it will continue on round. It will see edges that it thinks are part of this flow, depending on the angle of the edges, and it will select like a ring of edges or a route of edges that looks most logical. So just by double clicking on those things, I can select edge loops. What I can also do is I can do things like if I select everything there, I can shrink the whoops. If I, for instance, have a group of faces selected like these, I can shrink the selection by right clicking and holding down Alt and clicking, and I can shrink selection by doing that. So let's just do that again. So holding down Alt, right clicking, shrink selection, and it'll go down to the middle face, the face that's in the center of those. So it'll look at the selected faces that are on the periphery, and it'll reduce and it'll remove any faces that are on the outermost edges of my selection set. And I can also grow selection. So it'll take that face and it'll look at all the faces or edges or vertices if I've got them selected, and it'll select the vertices that are adjacent to it. So shrinking selection and growing selection. So there's a few different things that we can do to make our selection much easier when we're working in component mode. So if you try out a few of these, and you can become used to selecting things easily, selecting groups, selecting edge rings, selecting and increasing our selection set and reducing it. At any point we can right click and go back to object mode if we want to move the object around, and if we want to select, say, all the faces or a group of faces, we can then right click, go to face, and then we can select the face components, and then we can just move them around and do what we need to do to them.